And we are now going to turn on the Jets. That's what I like to call it. TurnOnTheJets.com. Joe Caporoso runs that spot. He's a podcaster, a blogger, loves football, loves the Jets, has to deal with the Jets. And I think anybody has paid their dues. I always laugh when people call up and they say, yeah, diehard Jet fans. Like there's another kind. You know, I mean, what other kind of Jet fan can you be? They've tried to kill you every year. You're still here. You must be a diehard Jet fans. Joe, how are you, my friend? Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you. Thank you for having me.
Well, we appreciate you coming on. I had Mike Carver on from the Aisle Seat podcast the other night, and we were talking about the Islanders. And I do think the podcast guys and the guys, and you see it all the time with your followers and the interactions that you have, some passion for teams and some of your followers are just really, really into it. It's kind of wild. Where did you get your passion for the Jets?
I have been a Jets fan my entire life. My grandpa was a season ticket holder and started taking me when I was 5 or 6 years old, and then I started going with my uncle and dad and my cousins. And right around when I was finishing up high school and college, I started writing about this team to express some of the ongoing frustrations with them. And little did I know I was starting at a good time for the Jets when they were actually regularly in the playoffs. And I launched her on the Jets after back-to-back AFC championship games. And they've rewarded me with 8 straight years of no playoff appearances. But we're still hacking away at it. And we're trying to be optimistic heading into 2019.
Yeah, and TurnOnTheJets.com is the spot. And a lot of you know that already. We could talk about so many things, but I'd rather look ahead than look back, because once, as you've mentioned, and you and I agree on a lot of things, and we sort of become Twitter pals, but our opinions are similar in a lot of ways, and you made the right point, and one that we all need to remember all the time, and that is, if we're going to stick with our teams, then accept the decisions that they've made and move forward. And as much as you and I might be wary of Mike Maccagnan and wary of the hire of Gase and the guys making the hire, it's done now. It's over. So what are your thoughts about this critical time of year for the Jets as they try to change the culture around the club?
I think we've talked about this previously. I think it's about adding more talent. I think both of us and many were somewhat underwhelmed by the decision to hire Adam Gase. I do like the thought of going with an offensive-minded coach, someone who has a skill set and a background to work closely with Sam Darnold. That is a positive thing. Now, obviously, he's had other personnel and management issues that you hope he could learn from and rectify in his second opportunity as a head coach. But this team needs more talent before they're going to compete. It does not matter who is coaching them if they have one of the 5 worst rosters in the NFL. Now, fortunately, they have the 3rd pick in the NFL draft. They have $100 million plus in cap space. Free agency is always a risky way to go about building your team, and they're going to need to draft better. But offensively, they need to start by adding more talent around Sam Darnold and making life easier on him. He had an up-and-down rookie year, but the success he was able to have throwing to guys like Andre Roberts and Jordan Leggett and Eric Tomlinson was enough to rightly get Jet fans very excited. So now let's see him playing with, I don't know, a Le'Veon Bell, a Golden Tate, a receiver that you find in the 3rd or 4th round who can make an immediate impact and isn't out of the NFL within 2 years. The Jets need to start putting talent around him so they have a better chance to actually compete.
My sense that I get is that you're not overwhelmed with the offensive free agents out there outside of maybe a Bell. It's not a great group.
No, it's not. And that's the problem with free agency, because really every team in the NFL has cap flexibility. Every team structures contracts with easy outs after 1 or 2 years. So very rarely does someone hit the market without a major question around them, an injury concern. They've struggled recently. They're older and more advanced in their career. Le'Veon Bell is an anomaly in that he's had this unique contract situation. He's a guy who's put up Hall of Fame numbers to this stage of his career. Fortunately, the Jets have the cap flexibility to hopefully take advantage of that. Beyond that, you're either taking swings on guys who are older, like Golden Tate. You're taking swings on guys who have been banged up in role players, like a Tyrell Williams, or you're signing other teams' backups when you're looking to add skill position players. On the offensive line, there's some interesting names. a guy like Roger Saffold from the Rams, a guy like Mitch Morris from the Chiefs, but their teams are going to try to keep them, and there's going to be a lot of competition for them. But this team needs to find a way to add more offensive line depth and competition, and add more competition also at running back and receiver. You just have to give yourself more options, so when people get hurt throughout the year, you're not immediately so thin on the outside.
Giving up the twos the way they did and having poor drafts under Maccagnan, you really kind of tempted to trade that 3 down to get more picks, aren't you?
Yeah, I think you want to have as many dart throws as possible. I think the NFL draft is an inexact science, right? There was always going to be misses in those mid to late rounds. The Jets are a little short-handed this year. Unfortunately, they did pick up another 3 by trading away Teddy Bridgewater, but they should be looking to trade down when possible. And there's going to be a lot of teams who are quarterback hungry, including potentially the Giants, the Bengals, the Jaguars, and the Jets need to take advantage of that because they have so many holes to fill. Give yourself more swings at filling those holes rather than just getting one shot in those first 2 rounds.
I like your honesty generally, so I'll ask you a tough question. What have you seen from Mike Maccagnan that would make you believe that Jet fans should be optimistic that they won't screw this up?
That is a tough question because his resume does not inspire faith. I would say that there have been some signs, mild signs of improvement over the past, I would say, 12 to 18 months. I think the move to get Darnold or get to the number 3 was a needed aggressive move. I think finding Chris Herndon in the 4th round was the most encouraging mid-round pick they've had in the past 4 years. And I also think he made some interesting decisions in not bringing back guys who were replaceable. I look at a guy like Austin Seferian-Jenkins, who they let walk and were able to replace without it being a problem. Even a guy like Demario Davis, who's been great for the Saints, they were able to fill that spot in a productive way in a cheaper manner. Those were moves I'm not necessarily sure he made earlier in his tenure. And look, you just got to hope that he has learned from previous mistakes. He stops drafting 25 and 26-year-old prospects in the middle rounds. He stops overloading on low-impact positions like interior defensive linemen, and he sees where the rest of the league is going. And as a Jet fan, you don't really have a choice at this point because he's probably here at least 2 more years unless the bottom really falls out this year. So you got to hope that trajectory continues in the right direction because he did get Darnold, he did get Herndon. Now he just has a lot more work to do around that.
Joe Caporoso joining us. TurnOnTheJets.com is his spot. Chris Moore with you on the fan here on this Thursday night. The top 4 offensive teams just met in the AFC and NFC championship games, setting us up for the Super Bowl. And we know Darnold does not have a lot to work with. So it's unfortunate for the Jets in a way that this pass rush rich draft coming up, and the Jets could, like many other teams, need outside pass rush for sure. Giants do too. And yet, you look at what's working right now and having the young quarterback who will be 22 this season, you want the Jets to really focus on being a more dynamic offensive football team. It doesn't line up as well as you'd like, huh?
It really doesn't, and that's why trading down is so interesting because you'd feel a lot better taking a guy like Jonah Williams or one of the other top offensive linemen at 8, 10, or 12 rather than taking them at 3 and then also having another swing later in the first round, maybe at adding a receiver or adding another weapon potentially to that offense. At 3, you're going to be looking at mostly defensive players who are being ranked in that top period, that top sort of 5 range. Does Josh Allen still fit as a pass rusher with them moving probably to a 4-3 predominantly under Greg Williams? I'm not so sure. Are they going to take another interior defensive lineman in Quentin Williams when they've done the same thing over and over and over again? This is a team whose 9 of their last 10 first-round picks was on the defensive side of the football. I believe 5 or so of those picks were on interior defensive linemen. It seems kind of crazy to keep doing the same thing, but you're going to see a lot of mock drafts this year that have the Jets doing just that. So I think they're going to be trying like crazy to trade down, and if they can't, they're going to do what they think they can to improve their pass rush.
The failure at wideout, Hanson, Ardarius Stewart, Devin Smith, the list is so long of guys that they were hoping would fill the spot. And Anderson, they end up getting, after the draft is over, and he ends up being as productive as anybody. And thankfully, Anunwa, who competes, is going to be around. But how big a deal is that in your mind for this offseason to find a wideout they can trust?
I think it's really important. I think most of the time, this is a team who's going to have 3 receivers on the field, like many teams in the NFL. So really, you're looking for another starter to go along with Anderson and Anunwa. And you're looking for more depth because both of those guys, I like both of them a lot. They just haven't shown an ability to stay healthy for a full season yet. Anunwa missed 4 or 5 games last year and missed the full season the year before. Anderson dealt with some ankle problems and was banged up and missed a handful of games. You need depth and more talent behind those guys and someone to start with them. You can't keep playing Jermaine Kearse, who was one of the least efficient receivers in football last year. The free agent market's thin. Maybe you take a look at a guy like Adam Humphries from the Bucs, who has 190 catches over the past 3 years and probably is not going to get paid by them with all the other talent they have at receiver. Maybe you look at a guy like Jamison Crowder, who was a little banged up last year but has been productive before. You have to find a way to add more talent to that group of 3 receivers. I don't necessarily think the Jets are going to be in the business of trying to trade for Antonio Brown based on what it sounds like the Steelers are asking for. There's been some talk about A.J. Green, but that would be a risk. Obviously, if he is healthy, he's one of the 5-6 best receivers in the NFL, but he's 31. He only has 1 year left on his contract. So I'm curious if the Jets are going to go outside the box or rather going to try to add a couple mid-tier options in free agency and just improve the overall depth of their pass catchers.
And you're on board with them trying to get Le'Veon Bell?
I think they have to. And I think, look, running backs, you don't have to convince me that running backs are a low-value position. They absolutely are. We've seen time and time again. You're seeing it right now with C.J. Anderson and Todd Gurley. However, I think the Bell situation and the Jets situation is a unique anomaly where they have to go outside of conventional team-building ways. They have more cap space than they know what to do with every single year. They have a lack of offensive talent, and Bell is someone who won't only help in the running game, he'll also help as a pass catcher and make life substantially easier for Sam Darnold. The Jets have the luxury of having a quarterback on a rookie contract. You could line up Bell's contract to line up with the rest of Darnold's deal and afford to sign him and still add multiple offensive linemen. That's how much cap space the Jets have. So you could load up Le'Veon Bell's money in the first 2 years of that deal, have an out after the second or maybe the third year, and get a guy who candidly immediately also becomes the best receiver on your team, arguably, if you look at his production, never mind the best overall runner on your team, and still have enough left over to go add a new center and a new guard, hopefully, as well. So, yeah, I think this is why you have $105, $110 million of cap space, to take advantage when a rare situation happens, when a player like Bell hits the market.
Well, it certainly would juice and add adrenaline to the Jet fan base, that's for sure, who definitely need to be thrown a bone here at some point. Joe, good conversation. We'll do it again as the offseason rolls on, and we appreciate it, and continued success with TurnOnTheJets.com.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.